Hey, welcome back to Flight Deck DIY. Last time I walked you through my hand-wired G1000 setup, and today I wanted to talk about another key project, which is the audio panel, which I have here. Originally, I thought this would be a simple first PCB project, but it turned out to be a real learning experience. The original version was actually much bigger. It was about this big, and it had this back shell that actually tucked Arduino Mega into there that mounted in there. And then I had a shield with a couple connectors on it that my audio panel, the circuit board from this, connected to this shield, which then went to this Arduino in the back shell. And I went from that version 1 to version 2, which is you see right here, where I was able to integrate the Arduino right here on the back side of the circuit board, which I can show you here. So here's the version 2, latest version with the Arduino on the back. Now, originally I thought this would be a great place to start before I do the G1000 because, I mean, it's really just an audio panel. It's got about 22 buttons and one encoder. Well, it's a dual encoder, but it's one component. So I thought that'd be a simple project to start with. Turns out it really wasn't. So I thought in this episode, maybe I'll kind of walk you through that. I didn't actually spend any time documenting the process of creating this audio panel. So I figured this would be a good place to start and show you the lessons that I learned that I'm going to apply to the G1000 before I start on that. So let's jump in. Here's the first version of the PCB. I've got all my buttons. I got my rotary encoder. They're all through-hole components, so they're soldered on the back side. And then I had two connectors right here that went to the shield that connected to the Arduino Mega. You can see I kind of ruined this board. But here's where I want to go. Lesson number 1, don't underestimate simple looking projects. Starting with the audio panel, I thought it'd be pretty straightforward, but with limited space and needing extra room to fit the Arduino in version 2, I quickly ran out of options with the 2-layer PCB. So I had to actually upgrade to a 4-layer board. That totally became necessary. So this was my first big lesson in not underestimating a project. Even if it's just an audio panel, it's probably going to be a lot harder than you think it is. So one of the major challenges with this was that in order to get an Arduino on here, well, first of all, since everything's through-hole components, meaning they're soldered here on the back side, that leaves the backside with very little room to put any other additional circuitry. So, you could probably fit a Atmega 2560 chip right here for the main brains of the Arduino. But other than that, you don't have a lot of room to work with. I was able to get rid of the connectors by putting an Arduino on the back of this, but that still doesn't leave you with a lot of space. So the first challenge was to try and find these tactile switches. They have an LED in the center that gives you some nice backlighting for your buttons. The first challenge was trying to figure out if there was a surface mount version of this component, which there is. And that was another big lesson that I had to learn. Component costs can really surprise you. I needed 22 of these tactile LED switches, and these switches on their own, I would say, aren't like super cheap. I think I got 26 of these, or I got 100 of these for 26 bucks on eBay, which, they're about 26 cents at that rate. If I did my math right, somebody can check me on that. So that's not bad. But if I buy these through a reputable source like Mouser or DigiKey instead of some random schmo off eBay, I think they were closer to like $1.22 or so a piece. That's not bad for 22 of them. It's not too bad. But something I learned was that the surface mount version of these, there is a surface mount version available, and they are over $4 a piece. So 22 of these switches at over $4, it was almost going to be 90 bucks just for these little switches. They have a nice feel and sound to them though. So this search taught me that balancing cost and design is a major part of DIY electronics. It's not just about the layout. It's also about choosing the components that will work and are affordable. Now, lesson number 3, sourcing parts takes a lot of patience. Mouser, DigiKey, you name it, whatever website it is that carries electronic components. I was probably there searching it. I spent hours on all of the websites. And with so many options, finding exactly what you need can be overwhelming. The filters and the data sheets are lifesavers, but it does take a lot of time. And I recommend that anyone new to this take time to really explore what's available. You'll need that familiarity when you're trying to find affordable parts that fit your specs. Lesson number 4, being mindful of connector orientation. When connecting to the Arduino externally, I didn't realize that the pins here on these connectors, they can be reversed because of the way they're positioned. So this taught me to check every connector orientation and make sure the pins match up correctly. It's a very simple but valuable lesson that prevents you from having to remake PCBs. Lesson 5, plan for mistakes and mounting holes. In version 1, I was so focused on fitting everything that I forgot about securing the board itself. So without holes for screws, I had to get creative. This experience taught me to always check for basic features like mounting holes before sending anything out for production. And remember, PCBs are all about iteration, so you won't get everything perfect on the first try, and that's completely normal. You are going to have to do multiple PCBs. Just get used to it. It's a fact of life. Nobody is perfect. Nobody's that good, right? I want to insert additional features that I wish I would have added. So one thing that I wish I would have planned for that I didn't was maybe adjustable backlighting. So being able to dim or even just like turn off all the LEDs and the backlights and stuff would have been a nice touch, because sometimes it can get kind of bright at night, and it'd be nice to be able to dim it. Another thing that I didn't think of is like maybe being able to do a design that could handle either a solid LED or even additionally RGB LEDs, one or the other or both would have been nice. So that you could not only dim the LEDs, but also be able to change colors of your backlighting, which would have been fun. Would have been a nice touch to kind of personalize your avionics to whatever you want. If you prefer white lighting or red backlights or orange or green or pink or purple, whatever, it would have been cool to be able to customize that in some way. Lesson number 6 is just get started. If you're getting into PCB design, I'm not an electrical engineer. I didn't learn this stuff in college or anything. I just started doing it. I'm not great at it. I'm still just a novice. But if you're getting into PCB design, my advice is just don't overthink it. Just get started. Mistakes are part of the process. Every design, every revision gets you closer to your goal. So don't let the fear of doing it wrong, as someone else might point out, don't let that stop you from jumping in and learning, because everybody who's like an expert at it that tells you you're doing something wrong, they had to start somewhere too, and they sucked at first too. So just get into it, dive into it, get started. You're only going to learn more along the way, and that's a win for everybody. So when it comes to testing, also expect that your first board might need a few adjustments, and that's why testing is essential. You can see here on my first version, if I can get it to focus, you can see right here, whoop, I had to hand wire those 2 pins together because I forgot to put a trace in there. And so when I first got this up and running, almost everything worked, but a few things were being funny because that one connection, that one little connection needed to be made, and it was missed. I don't know how I missed it. I don't know how my software didn't catch it either, but it happens. I had to go back and, I knew I was going to do a version 2 anyway, which, by the way, I don't know if I showed this. Here's the Arduino on the back. So getting rid of all those through-hole components gave me all this extra space to work with to put an Arduino there on the back of the audio panel. One other thing that I didn't mention was that because the surface mount switches with the LEDs in them were so expensive, I searched and searched and searched and searched and found some other little tactile switches that would do the job. They don't sound quite as good. They're not quite as loud. But when you actually put a button on top of them, it's still a pretty satisfying click, and it feels pretty good. So one other thing, though, is that if you notice, they're not backlit. They don't have an LED in the center of them. There's no LED. So what I ended up doing is, if you can see right here, I have an LED on the outsides of each switch and then another LED right in the center of each switch. And so I took a chance and I thought, I wonder if I could just use these. They're so low profile. Here we go. If we can zoom in on that. They're pretty low profile. And since they're so low profile, I took a chance and I was hoping that this would be the case, that the LEDs, if I just flood the whole case with light, that I could design a button that would still let the light transmit through it, even though the light isn't directly underneath the button. Turns out you can. It works. I think that wraps it up for this one. I just want to keep these videos pretty short and sweet. I don't want to dive too much into technical details unless, of course, that's what you guys want. Let me know. But anyway, thanks for watching Flight Deck DIY. I hope these insights help you to tackle your own projects and avoid a few of my early mistakes. Drop a comment if you're working on something similar. I'd love to hear about it. And if you're into DIY avionics, don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.